Imagine waking up in Sri Lanka at the beginning of 2022, ready to start the new year off on a high note. But as you step out into the streets, you realize that something is off. Inflation rates are skyrocketing, commodity prices are through the roof, and essential items like food, medicine, and fuel are in short supply. To make matters worse, the country is facing daily blackouts and an economy that is spiraling out of control. The World Bank estimates that over 500,000 people have fallen below the poverty line, leaving many struggling to make ends meet. In response to this dire situation, the government declares an economic emergency, giving the military the power to regulate the prices of essential items. But despite their efforts, the crisis only worsens. As the months go by, anti-government protests erupt across the country, with demonstrators accusing the government of gross economic mismanagement. These protesters are met with force by the police and security services, but they only seem to fuel the fire. By mid-July, the government is on the brink of collapse, with the president resigning and fleeing to Singapore. The then Prime Minister and acting President, Ranil Wickremesinghe, declares a state of emergency and imposed a curfew in an attempt to restore order. But the protesters are not satisfied, and they seize the presidential office, demanding Wickremesinghe's resignation. So what led to Sri Lanka's economic collapse? Let's delve into the policies and factors that contributed to this dire situation through detailed analysis. Foreign debt and economic mismanagement. Economic mismanagement has plagued Sri Lanka for decades, particularly during the reign of the Rajapaksa government. Despite the end of a brutal civil war in 2009, the country struggled to rebuild and relied heavily on foreign loans to do so. Now Sri Lanka owes over $51 billion to foreign leaders, with China holding a particularly large portion of that debt. In fact, the Sri Lankan government failed to pay previous debts to China, which resulted in China taking control of a strategically important port on a 99-year lease. This situation has left Sri Lanka in a difficult position. The country must find ways to pay back its debt while addressing the economic issues that have led to this situation. Unfortunately, the government's response to these challenges has been inadequate, with widespread accusations of financial mismanagement, corruption, nepotism, and authoritarianism. One of the key issues facing Sri Lanka's economy is its heavy reliance on imports. Instead of investing in foreign trade, the government focused on the domestic market, importing more than it exports each year. This reliance on imports, especially with rising commodity prices, has been a disaster for the Sri Lankan economy. In addition, the government has been accused of undertaking vanity infrastructure projects, such as the Matala Rajapaksa International Airport and the Mahinda Rajapaksa International Cricket Stadium, both of which generate no revenue despite costing the country billions. These types of projects were often financed by further unstable loans from China and occurred at the same time as the Rajapaksa governments carried out massive tax cuts and agricultural policies that further cut revenue. As a result, the Sri Lankan economy has become extremely vulnerable to shocks. Moreover, the Sri Lankan government has been accused of financial mismanagement and corruption. There have been allegations that members of the Rajapaksa family and their allies have benefited from large government contracts, and that the government has been involved in money laundering and embezzlement. These accusations have contributed to a lack of investor confidence in the Sri Lankan economy. In April 2021, President Rajapaksa's immediate ban on fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides further decimated the crops of Sri Lankan farmers, contributing to a growing food shortage. The ban was later reversed, but the damage was already done. Crop yields dropped substantially, and the cost of agricultural produce within Sri Lanka skyrocketed, forcing the already debt-ridden government to rely on increased imports of grain from neighboring countries. Whether Sri Lanka can recover from its economic collapse may be a question on many people's minds. Stay with us until the end of the video to get your answer. The collapse of the tourism industry. The story of the Sri Lankan tourism industry is one of hope, investment, and ultimately a devastating collapse. After years of civil war, Sri Lanka was ready to rebuild and revive its economy. Tourism was identified as a critical sector that could provide a much-needed boost to the country's finances. International loans were secured, and significant investment was made to develop the industry. Things were looking up for the nation. Unfortunately, as the sector was beginning to flourish, a series of deadly terrorist attacks shook Sri Lanka to its core. On Easter Sunday in 2019, over 250 people were killed and 500 injured in a series of bombings targeting churches and luxury hotels. The attacks had a direct impact on the tourism industry, with travelers understandably wary of visiting a country that had just experienced such a tragedy. In the years prior to the attacks, Sri Lanka was ranked 104 out of 161 countries on the Global Terrorism Index. However, the attacks saw the nation rise to as high as 18 on the index. Today, Sri Lanka remains one of the countries most impacted by terrorism, sitting at number 27 on the index. In 2019, before the attacks occurred, tourism was worth a staggering $5.61 billion to the Sri Lankan economy. But in the aftermath of the attacks, the industry was left reeling. The COVID-19 pandemic only added to the sector's woes, effectively shutting it down before it had a chance to recover. As the world began to emerge from the pandemic, the tourism in Sri Lanka was hoping for a much-needed boost. Unfortunately, another setback was just around the corner. The Russian invasion of Ukraine dealt another blow to the industry. Up to 30% of visitors to Sri Lanka in 2020 came from Russia, Ukraine, Poland, and Belarus. The events in Ukraine are likely to drastically lower that figure going forward. All of these factors have combined to decimate the tourism industry in Sri Lanka, a sector that accounts for over 12% of the country's GDP. Despite efforts to revive the industry, it shows little sign of growth. The collapse of the tourism industry serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of the Sri Lankan economy and the need for sustainable economic policies moving forward. Can Sri Lanka recover from its economic crisis? With the aid of IMF's relief package and the implementation of austerity measures, Sri Lanka can embark on its journey towards economic recovery. Many countries have faced similar challenges, and in most cases it is taking years to rectify their economies. A depreciating currency can benefit Sri Lanka as it makes its goods and services more affordable in foreign markets, possibly leading to a surplus in the current account. The IMF's economic reform plan may necessitate diversifying the economy to include other revenue sources. Despite progress, political obstacles remain, and much depends on the willingness of political leaders to embrace change. Whether the new government will alter previous administration's policy remains to be seen. All right, folks, that's a wrap. We hope you thoroughly enjoyed the video and gained valuable insights. If you found it helpful, please show us love by smashing that thumbs up button. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification icon so you never miss out on our future content. We can't wait to bring you more exciting and informative videos, so stay tuned and join us on this journey.